Well, we're joined now by Rufus Mwanyasi, who is investment analyst at Tsavo Securities. Morning, Rufus. I was just saying that shares now seem to be supported by people looking for value after a week largely of profit-taking after the big spike the previous week.
Yeah, it is true. The market has been hit by a series of profit-taking trades, and I think that's largely why we saw a drop of about 120 points of the market last week. And I think that is set to continue even this week because we believe that a lot of, in fact, a considerable section of the market is trading at overbought levels. So we think the profit-taking may continue for the better part of this week.
I'll start with a story. I was just running through the kinds of things we were going to talk about this morning, and I'll start with the thing that seems really interesting is Telkom Kenya losing half of its fixed landline subscribers to two things: vandalism on the one hand, presumably that's theft of cables and that sort of thing, and changing consumer preferences, which I suppose is another way of saying people don't need fixed lines anymore. They want to go straight to mobile. So that's quite a big shift in 1 year.
Yeah, indeed, quite a large drop, and I think what that means on telecom side is that the business or the telecom business is becoming more innovative, and the most innovative partners are the ones that are seeing the traffic moving towards them. So I think, to be honest, telecom has lagged on that end, and I think that's why we're seeing such a shift. And I think maybe the only remedy to that is if they put out more innovative products out there and put up a bit of marketing. I think maybe they might stem that traffic.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if you look at the numbers there were 148,000 fixed landlines in 2011, down to 70,000. Is this a trend that could eventually put this company out of business, or has it adapted its business model? You know, it's in the business not of fixed landlines, but it's in the business of communication.
True, yes. Yeah, it is true, and I think that's the risk that it faces. That if this continues for the next 2.5 years, then I guess these guys might even close shop. But I think there's still hope if the management could just see a way of just coming out with a more innovative product. And I think at this particular time, well, it makes a lot of sense for people to use mobile phones because there's a lot of ease in just getting SIM cards and operating. Even main businesses right now are using mobile phones rather than using the landlines. So I guess I think this is a time that management needs to even update or even just come up with a new business model so that they may be able to stay alive in this environment.
Well, and related to that is the news story about undersea fibre optic cables. And we know one of the problems with internet access is the slowness of access, but there's increasing capacity being rapidly installed off the coasts of Africa on both the east and the west coast. And I see 2 undersea fibre optic cables will make cheaper connectivity for Kenya and faster connectivity. The effect on business could be substantial, let alone a company like Telkom.
Yeah, that is true. I think that's a move that is largely fed by the fact that we've seen increased internet subscription, particularly in the last 2 years, and I think like some of the top leaders in the industry are actually investing heavily because, as we see right now, the business from the voice side is largely going on a plateau. So I think it makes a lot of business sense to start investing heavily on the data segment of the market, and I guess that's why we're seeing companies investing heavily in laying out the fiber optic. And I'll give you an example of Safaricom that last year put out about $100 million onto that project. And yes, if Telkom picks up on that idea as well, I think it might impact positively on its revenue.
Yeah, well, we have the example in South Africa of a giant telecommunications company, Telkom, which failed to adapt quickly enough, sold off its holding in a mobile operator, Vodacom, and has been declining ever since. So the risks are high. There's also a note being put out by Kestrel Capital on Safaricom. You mentioned Safaricom. It's a big company that we talk about a lot on the program, saying that higher dividends expected if there's a drop in finance costs. What's that about?
Well, Perhaps I'd like to look at it from a different view, not only on the finance cost, although that's a factor, but I'd like to look at it in terms of the increase, and they've been trying to increase their product offering. And at least for the last 1 year, we've seen them launching a M-Shwari product, which right now we're talking about $1 billion deposited on that product alone. And just recently we saw them ink a deal with Intel to supply its products, its low-end smartphones, and also of course the M-Pesa product that they have. As we are seeing them increasing these product offerings, then of course there's that hope that that'll also impact positively on their revenues, and I think that's what informing partly the reason why we think that that's going to increase their dividends for their shareholders. But well, of course, these are new offerings. Let's just see how they work out in the next 6 months. And if you see any positive increment, then I think that's something to really base on the profitability of this company going forward.
Yeah, one just senses that there are some structural shifts in the sectors that these companies are operating in, and some value to be had and big risks to be taken there. Then what about Centum acquiring a 45% stake in a microcredit firm? Just remind us what Centum is, an investment company.
Yeah, it is an investment company, and one particular thing to note about this firm is that they've been really pursuing a diversification, strategy for the last 1.5 years, and I think that's why we've seen them, cut a lot of the investments, from the quoted companies going into private equity, and that's the reason why we're seeing, some of these investments. And yes, the investment that they just made on a company called Platinum Credit is just gives them an exposure to the microcredit business, which is really a booming business on this side of the continent. And I think going forward, I think this will be an interesting, uptick just to beef up the portfolio and also just to diversify their portfolio. But one thing to note, what we noticed last week when the announcement came out, that the market really gave it a muted response. The stock has been trading on a thin range, basically, typical scenario, saying that the buyers or the sellers in the market, are not really sure what this kind of investment is going to, they don't really know sure. They're not sure the next direction of that stock. So I guess perhaps as they continue to digest the news, I think that will be interesting to watch, and how the share price reacts.
Okay, and last question for you this morning, Rufus, is going back to the big picture, the macro environment, if you like. The stock exchange had a 2-week strong run at the beginning of January. Now it's come off again. And yes, all your colleagues that we've spoken to so far this year have pointed to the elections that are due and concerns about the elections' stability, given what happened last time. So it's not to do with business, it's to do with the environment that business takes place in. What's your reading of that? What can we expect in that election and in the run-up to it?
Well, first of all, I have two points on that. First of all, I think the market is slowly beginning to detach itself from the political risk. So it's not quite a major factor as most investors or analysts think. But partly, of course, I'll agree with that. But on the other side, I also like to say that the market right now is really trading on sentiment, and I'll say even put it at 70% and 30% fundamentals. And I think even as we see right now, the fundamentals of most counters is very strong. But we're seeing a lot of profit taking, a lot of flat trading on most of the counters, which is basically, to me, what that means is I know the market is just on a wait and see attitude, and I think, as you mentioned, waiting to see how the elections go. And us guys, we're just thinking after March 4th, which is the election date, then I think we're likely to see a more activity coming through as investors now, the ones that be sitting on the sidelines are fearing for the election coming through. So I guess going forward, I think the market is still very bullish. The momentum is quite strong, and I think we're likely to see that happen quite vividly after the election.